I will never cry watching anime. Or so I thought. Before we get into this, please consider subscribing. It only takes a couple of seconds and it really helps me out. See, ever since I was a kid, I had a good amount of friends or siblings tell me they've cried watching anime. And I just thought, what's wrong with this person? There's no way I would cry over fiction. Oh boy, I was wrong. There's only been 3 times that I've cried. With the first time being when I was a lot younger. It was when I was watching Naruto for the first time. Me and my brother were sitting on the couch watching that one scene where everyone thought Sasuke died after the fight with Haku. I remember my brother just staring at me and asking, why am I crying? Truth is, I don't know why I was crying. I guess it was just that sad. The second time was when I was watching the Heaven's Lost Property movie. If I was to basically tell you what happened in the most simplest way possible, it'd be like this. There's the main character Tomoki, who is the classic pervert character, you know, a basic trope. So no girl likes him, but there's one girl who actually does. We come to find out she's always watched Tomoki from afar, and at one point she takes action, trying any way to get close to Tomoki. Later on, she ends up asking Tomoki out on a date, but on her way to the date, she gets hit by a truck. Here we find out that she's an angel and was just in a simulation, that simulation being Earth. Everyone starts to forget her, except Tomoki. She ends up making a deal with an evil angel and she comes back to Earth, but this time she's an evil angel warrior thing. In the end, they end up defeating her, she turns good, and she disappears. The ending of the movie to me when I was younger was so sad, I actually started crying. If you haven't watched this anime, I definitely recommend it. It's one of the most funniest animes I've ever watched, and I watched it when I was young knowing damn well I wasn't supposed to be. The third and final time was when I watched One Piece for the first time. I started watching One Piece during quarantine, which was definitely a perfect time to start it. Eventually, I got to Drum Island, where we meet Chopper, and get to see his backstory. After I watched his backstory, I was actually crying bad, man, like sobbing. And after that, Chopper has always been my favorite character in all of anime, but you could probably already tell that. I mean, just look at my channel. But this whole time, you've probably been wondering, what does any of this have to do with the title of the video? Well, now there is a new anime that takes the 4th spot, that being Frieren. If you don't already know what this anime is about a white-haired elf who joins the hero's party. This party consists of Himmel, Heiter, and Aizen. Eventually, they defeat the Demon King. Then they split. But that's not all this anime is truly about. This anime is heartwarming and I guess sad. We come to find out that the elf Frieren can live for a very long time, way longer than any human. So she can't really comprehend the life of a human. Because to her, the full lifespan of a human is like a month. A perfect example is when she leaves the hero party. She states that she has her whole adventure mapped out for about 100 years. The thing is, she says it so casually. And to make it worse, she comes back to visit 50 years later just to be surprised on how different Himmel looks. Shortly after this, Himmel would pass. This is like the first time she's ever really faced conflict with the passing of someone. She feels as if she barely knew Himmel and that 10 years wasn't nearly enough time to know someone, which is crazy. Say you knew someone for 10 years, you would probably feel like you've known them your whole life. But this basically gave the plot of the whole show. An elf that's able to live for so long has to learn and cherish the moments she has with people, especially humans. Another moment from the anime that speaks volumes is when she goes to visit Heiter. It turns out Heiter took in a little girl named Fern, who happens to be a mage in training. At the moment, Heiter is on his deathbed and he wants Frieren to take Fern under her wing, but she declines. So instead, he asks her to decipher a book filled with magic ranging from revival to immortality. So knowing that Fern is the type to learn any type of magic she can get, she stays and deciphers it, but this was Heiter's plan the whole time. He knows that Frieren takes her time on things, and her perception of time is a lot more distorted than others. He knew that she would stay there for a good while, and by the time she's finished deciphering the book, she would have already grown attached to Fern, and took her on as an apprentice. At the end of Heiter's life, he would end up confessing to Frieren that he's scared to die, but it wasn't death itself that he was scared of. It was the fact that he didn't want to leave Fern by herself, but soon after Heiter would pass, and with the funeral and one last pour of booze, Frieren would set out with Fern as her apprentice. Now, when I watched this anime, it was on a school night, which was the worst time to watch it. Because after watching this, it really had me thinking all night. And I'm not kidding either, the next day at school I hated myself. This anime truly is deep and I feel as if it gets into a topic that not a lot of others get into. But before the video ends, I would like to say one more thing about this anime. I think even though Frieren is around 1,000 years old, she still is relatively young. So I can feel as if it makes sense why she looks at other humans and can't comprehend their lifespan, because her mind hasn't matured enough to really understand that concept. And one moment from the anime that supports this is when Frieren and Frieren take up a job to clear a wrecked ship at a beach. In this little mini arc, it showed us that the whole time Frieren has pretty much been taking care of Frieren. She even has to wake up Frieren every morning, and Frieren responds to her similar to what a child would do. But all in all, this anime is amazing. I truly recommend this to anyone who's been looking for something to watch. It's one of the good ones. You know, I've always stood by one thing when it came to anime, or any type of story in general. If it made you feel a certain emotion heavy, it did its job. Example, in the Sabaody arc for One Piece, when the Celestial Dragon shot Hachi and Luffy finally punched him, I was actually really angry when watching that. I felt so relieved when Luffy finally punched him, which is why I think Frieren did its job. After watching it, I just sat there in deep thought. Now, an anime that's really similar to this, and I actually got this idea from my friend Soul. If you haven't checked out his channel yet, he just dropped a video on Frieren as well. And if any of you have liked my videos, you would most definitely like his channel. The link will be in the description. But he basically said that Frieren is similar to 2 Year Eternity, in which they both delve into the same subjects, that being someone who can live longer than others and experiences constant death has to learn the concept of life. With that being said, that'll be the end of my video. I know it's been a while since I uploaded. I'm actually currently in the middle of moving, so my setup is kinda sketchy. But I hope you definitely enjoyed this video. But be sure to comment if you liked the video or had any differing opinions. I truly do like this anime. I mean, take my opinion from a grain of salt, because I've heard people tell me that I'm impressed by everything. Examples like the Jujutsu Kaisen episode 15, I had no idea I had bad animation the whole time I was enjoying it, just to come to find out that people hated it. And with that being said, I'm out.